There was a boy who grew up like any other, near a perfect family, great neighborhood, and nearly decent friends. As the boy grew up, he had to move to another town. In this new town, he had met a great girl named Maria. Maria always had a fascination with the supernatural, and the boy, Malcolm, had thought it interesting as well. They met, had a great time with stories, and her practice in Wicca. It was a normal relationship. They were friends who had similar interests. Malcolm had wanted to join her in a Wicca to see what it was all about. He had told others about it. They laughed and mocked him and mocked at him, so he ended up just keeping it to himself and to Maria. Later on in their relationship, he had begun to fall for her. At least a small crush had formed. He promised her he would always be with her, and always do what he could to protect her, and she had only laughed and said thank you, or sort of things that would make him feel better. He would joke sometimes that he was her knight in shining armor when she had come to him with a problem she had. After it was settled, they parted ways, and he called her later on to ensure she was alright. She would, of course, lie at times, but she had gone through her problems, like she always had. The time come for high school. They still had hung out, but not so often, and in junior year, or sophomore year, a new boy named John had come into the picture. Malcolm wasn't so happy, but Maria had become infuriated with him. Malcolm had never really seen Maria anymore, for she was with this new boy. After a while, the new boy had finally asked her out, and him and Maria would start dating. Malcolm had gotten upset. He was about to lose someone precious to him, so he would make up things as he was with them, just for some way for Maria to remember who he was. Of course, it was to no avail, and later on, Maria had come to Malcolm with what he believed to be bad news. Malcolm had sat down on his porch steps to hear Maria tell him John didn't want her to come to Malcolm with her problems anymore. She says it was to help the relationship grow further. Malcolm was crushed, but understood. She says it was to help the relationship grow further. Malcolm was crushed, but understood. He only wanted her to be happy. But inside him, something snapped. He had begun to hate John for stealing away something so precious to him. He had begun to tell John things Maria had said when she sneaked to him with few problems she could say. He succeeded once in crushing John's heart, but Maria, of course, came by and talked him into apologizing to John. So, he had gone to apologize. After then, things were normal, but then the boy made up a demon who he proposed was possessing him. He, in a way, refused to let this John take something so precious to him away. The next day of school, well, like any other except one day, Maria was bragging about this stuff that made her face feel extremely smooth, so the boy requested to feel too. He was curious. That moment, he was stroking her face. He thought of her and John together and infuriated with him and ended up scratching and scarring her. He had apologized, but it was of course too late. Next day and months of school would be rough on Malcolm, for she would betray and release dark things Malcolm had believed in and messed with. It wouldn't matter to her, she had her love, and Malcolm was no more use to her. Malcolm more or less gave up the relationship he and Maria once had. The years passed and Malcolm joined the army. It's always been his dream to be a hero, someone people can look up to, so why not start his life with something where honor and integrity was in its name? While in the army, Malcolm was treated as a joke, a mascot, and anything but a soldier. Even when he proved he knew what it took, and after his deployment, he had fallen in love with another girl from his high school named Clary. During his deployment, he and she had talked much and regrew their connection from when she had been knocked up by a man in high school. When he returned to home, she had left that man, or so he believed, and started dating Malcolm. Malcolm fell in love, and whenever he returned home, since he couldn't sleep in the same bed at his parents' house, and he couldn't show his love in a physical manner at his mother's houses, he used his money from deployment to get hotels to spend time with her and her son. To the day's old friends from high school and ones of the current day Shad got on hold of him and warned she wasn't who she seemed to be, how she was messed around in high school, and how they didn't want to see Malcolm get hurt. Malcolm thanked them, but said he would have to give her a chance, that everyone deserves a chance. 8 months passed, and through those days, he had always questioned her loyalty. From disappearing from the hotel room to being gone in the army, it took his toll on him, and finally, after 8 months, she disappeared for a month. After that month, Malcolm had started getting worried. Had something happened to her? He called her mother, his friends, her friends, someone who could let him know what was going on. He finally got on hold of a friend that could get a hold of her, and in the next hour he received a text from Kelly, a long hurried text saying she had only wanted to be friends. This crushed Malcolm, and he tried to call her. Nothing. So he snaps, and knew she was cheating on him, and no reply from her. The next day he apologizes and wants to make things right again. He was just upset after all. Things go somewhat well, and he cracks a joke, the same he usually had done, and Clary snaps back and breaks it off with him completely. The next days for him were brutal. He ended up learning she had been cheating on him with the guy who had knocked her up back in high school. This is when he truly had snapped. Learning of this, he fell to his knees, asking God what he had done to deserve this. He always wanted to be the hope of others and bring light, bring good tidings to the world, only to have his mind messed with and love ripped from his heart. This is when he learned of the animal that lurks within the hearts of mankind. He had felt something evil, scratching from inside him. He felt a madness unlike any other. He wanted revenge. He was reminded how all those he had befriended through the years had done the same. No one was to be trusted. He had called the same friend who had given him a hand, and who told her to text him when she sent that hurried text. The next days involved little sleep and talking with friends, trying to save what sanity he had left, and not let madness, the animal that lurked in his heart, out of its cage. It worked for a while. He had calmed down, but always had the memories of his lost love within his heart. He just couldn't let go. Close to him, coming from home, from good, he had returned home to be a pallbearer for his grandmother's funeral. While home, he stayed with Maria and John, who had now been married. John and Malcolm had, through the years, befriended, as Malcolm had given up on his friendship with Maria, seeing how she had valued the new boy before a friend who would do everything for her. John requested that Malcolm stay with them after this time in the service, seeing as though his mother would be leaving and they would need help saving money for their own family. Malcolm hadn't planned returning home, but reluctantly agreed, seeing as it would be the safest bet for him. He had left for the army again in the next couple of weeks to finish out his term. Six months pass. He returns home. Malcolm slowly gets a friendship going with Maria again, and John had let it happen. That daughter grew a fondness for Malcolm because he was new and wouldn't yell at her when she had done something wrong. One day Malcolm makes the mistake in saying that their daughter liked me more than John. It obviously wasn't true, but John didn't like it so much, so some days pass and Malcolm apologizes. Now before I continue, John had mocked and made Malcolm ashamed for joining the service throughout his time there because Malcolm had complained about some things that had happened. John himself was never a member of any service, but a complete civilian, so Malcolm was quite bothered by it. Now continuing on. Maria and Malcolm get a friendship back and going, and one day Malcolm makes a joke to Maria that John isn't fond of. He tells Malcolm to not be mean to his wife, and Malcolm in turn tells to John to shut the up, that he's known her for years and she's completely fine. He and Malcolm had stopped talking after that, and Malcolm was suddenly reminded of the darkness from within his heart. How dare he try to take away the last shred of hope from regaining his friendship with Maria, the last true connection he had to someone of the female race. Slowly but surely he began to hate John once again, but since he could get into trouble with the police and Maria would never forgive him, he had played it off and kept to himself and away from John as much as he could. The days still passed, and Malcolm remembers how he once had love in his own, the animal from within his heart, who stayed clawing after John had tried to mess with him. He tries to fight it, but he's beginning to be too weak to continue fighting. He just can't hold on any longer. A year passes, and Malcolm was nearly gone. He was irritable and easily agitated. He hadn't been getting much sleep, and his eyes had become bloodshot from lack of sleep and malnutrition. Finally, he gives in to the best, the animal that lurks within. He finds where his lost love lives, and leaves for a house with a gun. He walks up to the door. He is laughing from the inside. He knocks, and who else would open the door but the same woman who had betrayed him? H just stares at her for a moment and lunges for her throat, squeezing the life out of her. Her lover jumps from the couch and makes his way towards Malcolm. Malcolm smirks as he raises the pistol and shoots her lover down, returning his bloodshot gaze to Clary. Finally, as the last of her breath leaves her, her son comes from the backyard from hanging with his friends. Malcolm sees him and tells him to run. Malcolm feels the satisfaction of bloodlust and bloodthirst as he watches the blood flow from his victims. He returns home, for John soon returns from work. As he gets home, he sees John pull into his parking lot. Malcolm smiles, for Maria is not yet home. He goes upstairs without a word and waits for John to get upstairs to his room. From behind the door, Malcolm wraps a cord around John's throat, strangling him. John throws him off, but Malcolm has the thirst of blood in his eyes and his soul. Malcolm then raises the pistol. John tries to die, but it's too late. The bullet tears through his stomach, and Malcolm walks over to him and smiles, and tells him, "Never take love from a man's heart and accept him to forget." He then shoots John in the head, and he is rushing from the steps below. Maria must be home. Malcolm looks at the pistol, knowing his life is over anyways, and then blows his brains clean from his rotted skull. I write this story for a friend of mine, very close to me. He had this same occurrence. I miss him dearly, and Maria was never the same that day. She had lost her husband, an old friend, and her home thanks to Malcolm. I remember her vowing to get revenge on him. I don't know how, but I don't like what she's becoming. I write this so whoever may read must remember that there is always good in the world, and no matter what may happen to you, everything will be okay in time. Just please, I beg you please, do not lose yourself to the madness of love. Whoa!